under the age of 35 in the academic category. As mentioned earlier, Nico is married to Chantal and has been married for 16 years. Another achievement. Nico is 10 years old and Mila is 8, and just like their father, they also aim for the stars. Nico is excellent at rhythmic gymnastics and Mila at ballet. Nico's life is based on strong Christian values. He's a caring person and a perfectionist, always striving to do the best in everything he attempts. In Chantal's own words, Nico is a family man who always puts her and his daughter's interest first. He is a hands-on dad who packs lunches, enjoys taking his daughters to the activities, really sits down for a tea party with them, and then during lockdown, he attempted to be the best grade 1 and grade 3 maths teacher possible, which I'm sure you also aced. Furthermore, Nico enjoys to travel and has a special interest in the culture and logistical infrastructure of other countries. He loves reading and watching sci-fi movies. He enjoys running, which is his way to cope with his everyday stress factors. Lastly, Nico, there's a message from Chantal saying, Nico, thank you for the wonderful example that you are to me and our children. Thank you for caring and putting us first, and thank you for being dedicated and working hard for your family. You are a perfect husband and father. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Professor Nico van der Merwe.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Madam Acting DVC, Professor Sonia Swanepoel, the deans, the directors, colleagues, friends and family. Thank you so much for being here tonight to celebrate with me and to share in my joyous occasion tonight. It's really special to me. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event, and I really, really feel honored and privileged to be here tonight. And also, Professor Swanepoel, as the representative of senior management of the university, I would really like to thank the university for trusting me to serve in this role as professor. And I have to say, it really is my wish to do the university proud, as well as my own scientific field. So the title of my talk is The Future of Accounting, Will We Be Replaced by Robots? So I chose this topic due to two reasons, mainly. Firstly, I didn't want anyone to fall asleep, so I thought this was going to be a fairly interesting topic. Also, the other reason is, to be quite frank, I get a bit hot under the collar about the current narrative about accountants' future and whether we will be replaced by machines. So I thought this is maybe a way to break down some of the misconceptions and maybe give a bit more perspective on the issue, because there's some truth around the issue. But not in the way that the current narrative is going on. So, as an introduction, I can say that the world is currently experiencing exponential technological change. Prof. Surajlal actually very aptly referred to some of those technologies. And these technologies currently create an unprecedented disruption to business. So technologies such as artificial intelligence, robotics, the Internet of Things, autonomous vehicles, 3D printing, nanotechnology, and quantum computing have taken the world by storm. And we've all heard of these technologies, but we don't necessarily all know what they do, and I also don't know. But this era is loosely termed the fourth industrial revolution, as Prof. Surajlal also said, which is abbreviated as 4IR. And I think we've all heard of the fourth industrial revolution. But what we have not all heard about yet is that many commentators now believe that we're already knocking on the door of the 5th industrial revolution. So we haven't even gotten used to the 4th, and now we already need to go into the 5th as well. Now, the 5th industrial revolution is loosely defined as the combination of machines and humans in the workplace, which is very apt to the topic that I've chosen. Okay, so let me show you an example of how exactly, or how disruptive exactly new technologies can be. I'm gonna run through about 4 examples before I get to the point. So this, what you see on the screen, there are 2 actual photographs of the Easter parades in New York City. So the first one, the left-hand side, it was taken in the year 1900, where you can clearly see, well, you can't clearly see because the technology was bad at that stage, so you can't see the photograph that well. But what you're supposed to see is this whole street of horses and carriages with only in that one red circle, one automobile. So this was shortly after Henry Ford actually started with mass production of automobiles. And at that stage, we only had the one motor car in the street. Then 13 years later, not 100 years, 13 years later, the same street, same city, and we had all of these automobiles with only one horse and carriage spotted in the mix. So can you see that in the space of 13 years, it completely changed the face of society, and actually there was an industry, although primitive, the horse and carriage industry, that was basically cancelled overnight when automobiles were invented. Another example is the evolution of music technology. So for the thousands of years of human existence before the year 1877, there was no way to store sound or to store music. So if a person did not sing something live or spoken something live or do anything live, there was no way to ever listen to that again. And of course, if the person passed away, there was no way ever to hear that voice again. Then someone invented this awkward-looking device called the phonograph in 1877, which was the first way to actually record sound. And you can even Google that. They digitized the first ever recording with a phonograph. You can listen to it on the internet. You can't hear a word the person is saying. It was such bad quality, but it was a breakthrough at the time, because for the first time in thousands of years, it was possible to record sound. So over the years, in 1926, records became the primary source of music storage, cassettes in 1963, CDs in 1982. And then in 1993 was the first time we got a digital file format to play music. I remember I was late primary school at that stage, and it was only possible to listen to an MP3 file through a computer. We didn't even have cell phones then, let alone smartphones. And then in 2001, roughly, was the advent of all these digital music players, the iPods and all of that. And today, we actually stream music live through the air from the cloud. So we Spotify or YouTube or whatever, and we don't even need physical storage anymore. I mean, can you imagine it all streams through the air? So this was in the space of roughly more than 100 years. So can you imagine how the next 100 years will be? My third example. This is a photograph of the first ever 3D printer. That was in 1988. And essentially, it was able at that stage to only print one red blob over the space of a week. Today, it is possible to 3D print an entire house where people can live in 24 hours at a fraction of the cost of a normal house. So that essentially strips 8 months and 30 days off the standard construction time of a house, which is normally 9 months. So can you imagine what this will do to the property industry over time? And what's even more scary is that currently more than 50% of the entire world's retirement wealth preservation sits in property. So all of us sitting here that have retirement portfolios, we all at risk. The value of our retirement portfolios can decrease drastically. Then my last example before I get to the point, because you may be wondering, how is this relevant to accounting? It's about the ethics of technology. So with technological advancement, there's a lot of ethics debates. So I'm using the example here of autonomous vehicles or self-driving cars. Now what a team of researchers from MIT in America has done is they have conducted an online social experiment called the Moral Machine, where they collected responses from more than 40 million people around the world from 233 different countries. And they asked for their preferences or their responses in terms of which characters to save if a self-driving car were to crash. Because just like human beings, a self-driving car can also be faced with a situation where either it needs to crash into a person or crash into a wall and kill the people in the car. So that's a real, it's just to call it as it is. So these global preferences have shown that the top 5 characters to save, if I can just go through the graph, is firstly a baby. So if a self-driving car sees a stroller, it should save the stroller, then a girl, then a boy, then a pregnant woman, then a male doctor. Then the top or the bottom 5 characters are firstly an old man, then an old woman, then a dog, then a criminal, then a cat. So I have to say, as a dog lover, I'm glad that a dog is at least above a cat. But can you imagine the sensitive debates arising from all of this? It was an interesting social experiment, but if we ever get to the point where these technologies need to be programmed, or will it just be random, or what? So it creates all of these debates, and it's actually a scary world that we're entering. So what does all of this have to do with accounting, you may ask? So to answer that question, I would first like to clear up a common misconception about accounting, especially for our non-accountant audience. The role of an accountant, or the job of an accountant, is often seen as somebody that do the books, or does the books, they balance the books. That's true to some extent. Accountants are all about debits and credits. They can balance the books. However, that's also specifically the job of a bookkeeper, whereas the professional accountant of modern society is actually a business leader, or supposed to be a business leader. So accounting is the language of business, and as the custodians of that language, accountants are at the forefront of business, and they're supposed to be business leaders. So, accountants should be part of the team that manage companies through the 4th and the 5th industrial revolutions, because these technologies actually, even though they're scary, create a lot of opportunity for business. And accountants should also play their part, because they're also part of the team to manage the wealth of a company to actually adapt to these technologies. But these technologies that create opportunities at the same time also create the threat to the existence of accountants. Because, of course, accountants themselves can be replaced by these technologies. So that forms the basis of my question tonight, so I'm going to actually try and answer that question. So to tackle this question as to the existence or the survival of accountants, I'm going to look at some elements, various elements in the remainder of my speech. So it's a little bit separate aspects, but it will all come together at the end. So I'm going to briefly touch on my journey thus far, because I believe my whole academic journey actually led to this point where I am today, in terms of the topic that I've chosen as well. Then also, I'm going to say a few words about some of the people who shaped my academic career, definitely not all of them. And then I'm going to talk a bit about my field of research, my PhD studies, all of those things, and how all of that is relevant to answering this question. And then I will also try and give a conclusion to this question. So will human accountants become extinct, yes or no? And then I will also conclude on some thoughts looking towards the future. So my journey, my entire academic portfolio after high school was molded by this one institution, the Noordwes-Universiteit, and of course its predecessor. So I enrolled, as Jackie explained, in 2000 for BCom CA, graduated 2002, did my honors in 2003, then I started with my articles in 2004, and I actually did my first year of articles as an academic trainee at Noordwes-Universiteit. Then I had to move to Johannesburg to do the remainder of my articles at Deloitte, or that was the firm that I've signed at. Actually, Noordwes-Universiteit, as Jackie said, was also the place where I met my future wife, who fortunately is not an accountant, so she brings a little bit of balance to my life. We got married end of 2005, finished my master's degree end of 2006. I was privileged to be able to publish one accredited article from my master's as well. And all of that was under the supervision of Prof. Susan Visser, but I'll say a few words about her in a second. Then at the end of 2006, I was at a crossroads. I didn't know what to do. I got two nice offers from Deloitte on the table in a management position, but I've always been academically inclined. My entire, even from primary school, academia was always my thing. So academia was calling me back, and its voice was very, very strong. So true to my nature as accountant, I got very analytical, spoke to a lot of people, asked them for advice. I made a long list of advantages and disadvantages of every choice, and not a single person that I spoke to said it's a good idea to come to academia. In fact, many of them said it's a terrible idea to come to academia. But the problem was, in the mornings when I woke up, the first thing that popped into my head was that I need to go back to academia. That was what my heart was telling me. So at the end, with Chantal's support, I, of course, decided to follow my heart. We moved back to Potch, and I joined NWU as a senior lecturer, a permanent staff member from 2007. Then I was immediately trusted to be subject head for financial accounting due to some changes in the staff. The School of Accounting in those years were very different to now. We were very thin on staff. And I was in that position until 2012. As Jackie said, my 2 children were born in that time as well. Then in 2013, I was given the opportunity to take over as CA program leader on the Potch campus. And I'm still in that position. So it's about 8-9 years later, and maybe I'm getting redundant and need to be replaced in that position, new blood coming in, but I'm still there in that particular role. So I'm sticking there at the moment. I also did my PhD, and I finished in 2013. And maybe I can tell you a little bit more about my PhD as well. So my PhD was in the field of accounting education. And you will see how that is relevant to answering this topic of tonight, or the question of tonight, in a second. The final title was Ameliorating Chartered Accountants Training at the South African University, Interventions for Reform. So that might sound very fancy, but what I decided to do for a PhD was to do something that I myself as a person and my program will get a lot of practical value from. So I decided I'm going to look at what are some of the problems causing the NWU'S CA program to not be the best in the country, and what we can do to actually change that around. So I thought, okay, I want to improve our program. But improving chartered accountants training sounded very blasé, so I just looked for a fancy word for improve, which is ameliorate. I also learned something new at the stage, and that's what I ended up doing. So my PhD consisted of 5 projects. I would have maybe settled on 4, but if you have Prof. Susan as your promoter, you rather go for 5. My first project was to actually compare the NWU'S CA program internationally. So I've chosen the UK to compare it with. I collaborated with somebody that I'll mention in a moment to compare the professional and the government frameworks of the 2 countries, and I've also compared our program to a comparative UK institution in terms of assessment, teaching learning model, and curriculum to see if we compare internationally. My second project was that I developed a very comprehensive questionnaire, which I gave to all the CA students on the various campuses, all the year levels, to try and figure out what were the barriers to student achievement at the time. The third project used the same data to actually try and understand how efficient the student achievement drivers were for different ethnic or racial groups. So that obviously had a very particular transformation objective. The fourth project was I wanted to understand why do students fail. So I actually employed mixed methods. So the first few projects were actually more quantitatively focused. With the fourth one, I went completely qualitative, and I identified all the students that failed first-year accounting, and I interviewed all of them in focus group interviews across the 3 campuses to really get to the bottom of why do students fail. In the first 4 projects, I came to the conclusion that there were some issues that we needed to address. But one of those was that even though we were very good and technically focused, we lacked some skills development. So part of the solution, and that was project 5, was to try and develop some skills. in our students. So I developed an interdisciplinary integrated case study and business simulation assignment, which I then also piloted with a group of our students. And I'm glad to say that from that PhD, I got 4 publications, including one which was a spin-off with the University of Western Cape. So when I presented Project 5 at one of the SAAA conferences, I was approached by colleagues from UWC. They liked the assignment, they wanted to use it with their students, and then we also wrote up the findings, and we published that as well in an international journal. And then I also, in addition to that, also published 9 other publications that Jackie previously referred to. Now, let me talk briefly about some of the people who shaped me. So, it's dangerous to single people out, because I can honestly say that in my entire academic career, I've truly been touched by every person I encountered in academia, whether it was my own lecturers as a student and also all my colleagues when I started working. But it's no secret that, and for those of you who have been here a bit longer, it's no secret that there's probably one person that stands out a bit, which was and still is a true mentor to me in my academic career, and that is Prof. Susan Visser. So, I first met Prof. Susan when I entered her Management Accounting Honours class. She was my Management Accounting Honours lecturer. And I have to say, my jaw dropped the first time she took a piece of chalk and she took a very complicated set of numbers. She gave all the standard costing variance formulas, and those of you who are accountants will know standard costing variances, not the easiest thing. She wrote all of them on the blackboard. She started applying that set of numbers without using a calculator. She made no mistakes without a moment of hesitation. So it was literally that scene that you see from the movies, where the genius professor takes a piece of chalk, start on the top left, end at the bottom right, and solve the world's problems in 2 seconds. And that is what happened. And I was very inspired, and I wanted to be that clever. Of course, naturally, I then also turned to Prof. Susan at the end of my honours to also be my study leader for my master's in management accountancy. And we kept in touch while I was at Deloitte as well. I actually was moderator for her as well 1 year. And she also played her part in luring me back to academia as well. And then she became the school director that year when I joined, or just a year before. And I worked for her for many years until she moved to the dean's office. Now, final thing that I want to say about Prof. Susan is, for those of you who ever had the privilege of working with her, you will know that she pushes you to be the best that you can be. She never missed a single opportunity to ask you, so when are you starting with the PhD? What topic is going to be part of your SAAA conference paper? And you wouldn't dare to tell her, listen, Prof, sorry, I'm a bit tied up at the moment. I'm not going to present an abstract this round. It just wasn't a valid answer. So you just worked and you just made it happen. And today I'm very glad, because honestly I can say I wouldn't be making this inaugural lecture at this age if it wasn't for Prof. Susan. Another person I have very much respect for is Professor Stuart McCleary. This was a photo at the SAAA conference in Johannesburg a few years ago. Stuart is actually a Scottish citizen. He works with the Glasgow Caledonian University in Scotland. I was introduced to him by Prof. Susan as well in 2004 at a conference in Durban when I was still an academic trainee. And I then annually I engage with him, because he is also an extraordinary appointment at our school, so he visits us every year. And when Prof. Susan moved to the Dean's office in 2013, I got the opportunity to actually manage our relationship with him as a school. And it was the best thing that could have happened. Stuart ended up being my assistant promoter for my PhD. We also collaborated on a research project. And still to this day, the highest impact factor article that I've ever published was with Stuart, because he's a genius researcher. So it just shows that if you surround yourself with geniuses, you also can become one. Then, a few other people I want to point out, and if I need to mention everyone, I will literally be here until tomorrow morning. So One person I also have much respect for is Professor Jan van Romberg. I've worked with him for many, many years, him being in many different roles. I was more or less in the same role throughout, but he was in very many different roles. And the one thing I want to point out about him is I learned an incredible amount of management skills from him. He has an absolute strategic mind. He's one of the greatest strategic minds that I've ever encountered, and he's a real strategist. That's what I can say about him, and that's the skill that I really got from him as well. Then Professor Helena Hansen van Vieren and Jackie McIntyre, our director and school director of the School of Accounting Sciences. I've known both of you for many, many years. I started, actually, when I joined the university, I was a third-year lecturer, and Prof. Helena was also a third-year lecturer on the other campus. We worked together. We came a long road. Same with Jackie. We were program leaders together, and now she's my boss. But we work very, very well together. And I have so much respect for you. And what I can say about both of you is actually that both of you don't mind getting your hands dirty and making things happen. You don't manage from the sideline or from the top. You actually get involved and you sort out issues really at a very, very deep level. And that's what I really respect of both of you as well. Professor Jaco Verscheer, he was my first-year lecturer, so he was my first exposure to university accounting. He later on became the program leader, so I worked for him for many years. And then I took over from him as a CA program leader. And then afterwards, we actually collaborated on research also for some projects. So really also a mentor to me. Professor Sonja Swanepoel. I can say so many things about her, but one thing I want to point out is she's ever only shown support for, well, firstly for my program, the CA program. Nothing is too big to ask. You just ask Prof. Sonja, she says yes. She makes it happen. But also on a bit more of a deeper personal level to me as a person as well. She's also only supported me as a person. And Prof, I will get back to you when I do my thanks at the end to also a little bit just talk about my promotion process and everything around that as well. So, then also professors, our deputy deans, Van der Merwe, Surijlal and Moroke, all of them, what I can say about them is two things. Firstly, they care about the people in their faculty. You get the sense of care when you look at them and when you work with them. Of course, Prof. Moroke is currently our acting executive dean as well. And the other thing is that all three of them believe in creating an environment conducive to excellence. And I can associate with that because I also try to strive towards excellence. And that's what I really can say about them. Then every single staff member in the school, every person that I've ever worked with, the thing is, our CA program is currently seen as one of the best in the country, not because of me, it's because of every single person sitting here and also attending online and not being able to attend tonight, making it happen. You're only as strong as your team, the team of people that you surround you with, and I have incredible respect for every single colleague. If I start mentioning names, really, it's going to be an hour more. Okay, my field of research. So over the years, I've buried myself in accounting education research. So this is actually a recognized niche research area for the SAAA, Southern African Accounting Association. And what I like about accounting education as a research area is, for me, it's the perfect combination of two of my greatest passions. Firstly, being accounting. So look at the two words. Accounting, the first word. Accounting, it's my subject, it's my trade. I am an accountant. I love the profession. And then education, the second word. I am an educator. That's also my trade. So for me, it's the perfect combination of research, and that's what I really love about it. Calls have been made in accounting education research that accounting education must change for accountants to survive. So I'm getting back to my topic on the robots thing. So accounting will have to change for accountants to survive into the future. So I will address this problem from two aspects. Firstly, I will look at some of the exponential technologies currently in accounting and auditing, and then I will also look at the education imperative. And don't worry, I won't be too much longer. Oh, sorry. So, firstly, the impact of exponential technologies in accountancy. So if I look at some of the research currently, it's already proven that cloud, big data, blockchain, and AI will automate decision-making in accounting. It's going to happen. It's not just fairy tales. So it will happen to some extent, and research is backing that up. And of course, that actually places the profession's legitimacy into question, because how can it be a legit profession if it can potentially be threatened? So for my colleagues, for those of you interested in research, there's a theory, as you would know, legitimacy theory. So if you want to have a fancy theory to latch onto with this aspect, use legitimacy theory. So also other authors have shown that there's not sufficient attention in the literature to this problem. So we don't know exactly what the impact will be and how big it will be. So we need to do more research in this space. And also, it's not just me saying it, research backs it up, that accountants have an opportunity to play a vital role in employing technology in the businesses that they help manage. But unfortunately, there's also currently a lot of resistance against adopting these technologies. So accountants, as a breed, are resisting the adoption of these technologies. So unfortunately, we don't want to change, generally speaking. Then very interestingly, when I prepared for this lecture, I came across a study by Korhonen et al. That actually found that calculation tasks may be more fit for humans and not machines. So that actually led me to believe that maybe we're over-exaggerating the issue. But how will we know if we don't do more research? And that's what we need to do to find out. So let me get a bit practical around accounting technologies. So what you see on the screen there is Alice. Alice is an auditing robot. It was built by Bidvest. This is not the future, this is today. This robot was built in 2017. It's been commercialized and rolled out to other companies as well. And how the problem arose is that actually Bidvest is a multinational company with 351 companies making up the Bidvest group. Can you imagine? 351 companies. So Rikus, there's a consolidation for you to do. Now, every single company in Bidvest have to undergo an IT audit, and it used to take, on average, 2.5 years per company to go through one audit cycle. Of course, they did all the companies at the same time, but it took 2.5 years to do one cycle. So today, with Alice that was developed, actually all their IT audits are done concurrently, on a daily basis, continuously, and it happens throughout. It never stops, and it can perfectly sample everything. And that's, as I say, today, not the future. Two other technologies, and there are so many more that I can actually mention. The one is RPA, or Robotics Process Automation. One of the companies leading this is UiPath. So robotic process automation is software robots, and they can do many things, including to understand what's on a screen, to complete the right keystrokes, to navigate systems, and to identify and extract data. So the picture that you see, if you look at a TV show or something where the people sit in an office block, hundreds of people sitting in one large venue with their cubicles and their computers and their stack of documents, all of that can be automated with RPA. So it's only a matter of time, and we won't have those scenes anymore. The other technology is optical character recognition. So one of the leading applications in that space is Dext. So Dext is an app where traditionally business owners would actually, whenever they get source documents, receipts, invoices, etc., they will throw it into a box, and they will take that box at the end of the month, drop it on their bookkeeper's table, and say, here, all my invoices, do the books for me. But with Dext, what happens is when the owner gets any source document, they just take their mobile phone, they take a picture of the document. The app uses optical character recognition. It extracts all the right data and put it in the right field, the supplier, the amount, the description, everything, the date, and it automatically pushes it through to the accounting system on the cloud, and it's automatically processed. No manual intervention, no debits and credits needed. It's automatically done. So clearly, there is a bit of a problem for us as accountants. So what is the solution? And that's how I get to the education imperative. So many professional bodies and organizations around the world actually have came to the conclusion that they will also have to change their professional syllabi. So I am a member of SAICA as a CA, and I also manage our SAICA program. So I'm going to look at what SAICA does, but actually many different bodies around the world are following suit. So SAICA developed a new competency framework. I apologize for my accounting colleagues. You know this a lot. but for my non-accountant audience, I please also just want to briefly touch on this. So SAICA developed a new competency framework which is known as CA 2025, and SAICA specifically emphasizes this business leadership concept in their new framework. So the definition of CAs under the new framework is that CAs are responsible leaders who behave ethically and who are able to develop, influence, and lead others. A clear human aspect there. Including in SAICA's syllabus is a number of new things we need to teach the students, one of which is digital acumen. So digital acumen includes computational thinking, data knowledge and strategy, data analytics, automation, artificial intelligence, blockchain, the Internet of Things, cybersecurity, and user competencies. So, ladies and gentlemen, I did not read you a computer science degree here. This is the syllabus for an accounting degree, or part of the syllabus of an accounting degree going forward. And we will already start implementing most of this from next year at our own institution. So, SAICA is sending a clear message. Either we need to adapt or we will die. So, in conclusion, will accountants be replaced by robots? So the short answer is no. Accountants will not be replaced by robots. However, there is a proviso, and that is that education must change. So routine and programmable work will be automated, but we should not see it as a threat because we will save time. It will create efficiency, it will create headspace for accountants to actually add value to their clients and to not waste time on mundane tasks. Time previously spent on balancing the books can now be spent on building relationships, for example, and interacting with your clients. So ironically, by having technology taking over aspects of accounting, the accounting professional will actually become more human in the process. So in future, we will focus on things like emotional intelligence or EQ, communication skills, interpersonal skills. Liesel, I'm talking in your whole PhD area there. So, and I'm for one very, very excited about this prospect, and I intend to get to grips with these technologies and try and instill that into my students as well. Then, just briefly looking towards the future, there's much research to be done. Currently, I am finishing up with a few PhD and master students, well, one PhD and some master students. Now, ironically, one of my PhD and the other master student actually currently focuses on issues of auditing quality, which is a little bit outside my field, but you will know, all of you, sitting on that side, that accountants are not that big on research, and therefore there's not many supervisors available. So you tend to go with what your students are interested in. So, but I'm finishing up with that as well. And then I'm currently also collaborating with Stuart McCleary and Prof Herman Vivier on an ethics education paper, which due to my own fault is not progressing as fast as it should be, Herman. But the other paper that we've also submitted for publication already was a technology acceptance paper that I collaborated with UCT, WITS, and University of Fort Hare. And in future, I would like to align my research specifically with the CA 2025 framework, and I want to then focus on this digital acumen side, and then also, just for a bit of variation, critical thinking as well. So I like critical thinking as a research topic as well. I would like to close with a quote from Mr. Nelson Mandela. He once said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." So let accounting education then be the weapon that we use to ensure that our beloved accounting profession doesn't only survive, but actually also thrive. Now I'm done with my speech, just a few words of thanks. So firstly, I need and I want to thank my Creator, without which any of this would not have been possible. So it's only due to God's grace and blessings that I am here today. And all of this is temporary, as we all know. Then I also, once again, would like senior university management for the promotion on the one hand, but also for just supporting our program. When I talk to other universities, because I engage with other universities that are SAICA accredited, what's clear is that their top management don't appreciate their CA programs as much as our top management does, whereas we are very privileged. Our senior management understands that CA is a flagship program. They understand that SAICA has many demands and that they are a bit unique. and they let us be somewhat, to some extent, and we really appreciate that. Prof Moroke, our acting executive dean, and the entire faculty for hosting this function. It's really a fantastic function. Thank you also for the support that you give as our acting executive dean. Prof Sonja Swanepoel, so Prof Sonja is, I don't know how you say it, I don't know if you're currently still executive dean while you're acting as DVC, but I've also walked a long road with Prof Sonja over the years. And Prof Sonja, I want to thank you for many different things, but also for your support during my promotion process as well. The psychological support, the emotional support, for continuing to believe in me during the entire process. I really, really, truly appreciate that. And I obviously would not have been promoted if it wasn't for you that rooted for me as well. But for everything else that you've done for us, also a huge thank you. Then to Esme and Shantae, who arranged everything that you see around you, the decor, the everything, they were responsible on behalf of the faculty to organize this whole function. And then everybody else involved in the function, the sound people, the people that prepare the food, everybody. It looks beautiful, and I really, really enjoy all of it. Then the colleagues in the faculty and the school, once again, I'm blessed to work with you. I learn so much from you every day. And really just thank you for being what you are and for accepting me as well. I tend to describe myself as a weird person, so thank you for understanding that side of me as well. And then lastly, but probably the best, I saved the best for last, my family and friends. And I think I'm just going to switch to Afrikaans for a minute or two. So eerstens vir Chantal wil ek baie dankie sê. Vir al die jare. Jy lyk verskriklik mooi vanaand, moet ek ook sê. En ja, wat ek kan sê is, vandat ek en Chantal uitgaan, eers tydens my studies en later as 'n akademikus, sê ek elke jaar vir haar, dis 'n rowwe jaar hierdie jaar. Volgende jaar gaan beter gaan. En ons gaan baie meer tyd vir mekaar hê. En is nou letterlik 20 jaar later en dit gaan nog steeds nie beter nie. Ek is net so besig soos in die verlede. So baie dankie dat jy my aanvaar vir wie ek is en my ondersteun ten spyte daarvan. En ek sien uit na die res van die lewe saam met jou. Dan natuurlik ook my 2 meisiekinders, Nico en Mila. Ek is verskriklik lief vir julle. En dis eintlik maar waaroor die lewe gaan. Al die goedes van vanaand is eintlik maar bysake. Dan ook vir my ma, Renet, baie dankie vir al die jare se grootmaak, dat ma my met goeie waardes grootgemaak het, vir al die geleenthede wat ek gekry het. Regtig, ek het bevoorreg groot geword met al die geleenthede en vir die waardes wat ek geleer het. En dan ook vir my pa wat nie meer op aarde is nie, maar ek is seker hy is ook vanaand hier met ons en ook saam met ons bly. Ook vir oom Wessel, dankie dat oom in my ma se lewe is en vir al die ondersteuning en vir alles wat oom vir ons doen. Ook vir Chantal se ouers, pa Hannes en ma Ansie, baie dankie vir al die ondersteuning vir my en vir Chantal. Dis nie altyd wat 'n mens kan sê mens het goeie verhoudings met mense skoonouers nie, so ek is regtig bevoorreg dat dit die geval is. En vir al my ander familie en vriende hier, oom Stefan en tannie Lien, my vriende wat daar sit, vir al die jare se ondersteuning, wil dat julle hier is vanaand ook om dit saam met my te deel. Regtig vreeslik baie dankie vir elke liewe een wat hier so is. En ek dink ek het nou regtig meer tyd gevat as wat ek veronderstel was om te vat, maar dis uiteindelik die einde van my storie. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for being here and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Dumeling Boachitsum. I have to say that because I'm from Mafeking and it means hello to the family or the people that we cherish. Nico, it's a wonderful evening and we are so proud of you as faculty and as management. And believe me, before the end of the evening, I'm going to post some clips on the senior management WhatsApp group about this wonderful event that we had the privilege to have, specifically in this pandemic, that we could have a face-to-face interaction. We all felt it will never happen. Yesterday we had the privilege, and the SALA colleagues were so expertly and wonderfully with our first PhD and master's graduation ceremony in the Tertius Hall. And it was such a special evening or special afternoon that we could have a face-to-face engagement. But Nico, being a bit of an academic myself, I want to reflect a bit on everything that you shared with us this evening. And you gave us sort of a picture of the history of Industrial Revolution. But I thought I'll go to the first one, which was in 1784, when they invented the steam power. And then we got the weaving loom. And then the second Industrial Revolution was in 1870. And that's when we started with mass production. The assembly line, and also electrical energy. And then in 1969, automation, computers that you have illustrated, and some electronics. And now today we're in the fourth industrial revolution. It's cybernetics, the Internet of Things that you mentioned, and Prof's BAPS, and then networks. But there's also something about combining the human body with computing, which is a bit scary for all of us. I mean, we know that the Da Vinci robotics machine in hospitals are now performing surgery. And your doctor is sitting there in front of a computer. And this computer is actually doing the surgery. So I think in the medical profession, they are more scared than in the accounting profession, because that is really taking it over. We know that doctors in the States are doing ops in people in Africa. But that's a completely new era. It's a new era. It's the beginning that builds and extends the impact of digitization in unanticipated ways. It's new capabilities for people and for machines. Now you must know, I'm a frustrated academic. I can't lecture anymore. And one of the things we really appreciate as academics and facilitators is that your students cannot walk out because they need to pass the module. So you've got a captive audience. So if I get the opportunity, I want to preach a bit. So let me tell you that of the 7.6 billion people in the world, 5 billion has not got access to improved sanitation. But 6 billion have access to mobile phones. And William Gibson said that the future is already here. It's just not very evenly distributed. We've got this digital divide. And many parts of the world, the aspects of the second and the third industrial revolutions have not even been properly experienced. Complicated by the fact that new technologies are in some cases able to leapfrog into these older ones. So what does he say? He says it's only one thing that's going to save us, and that is cooperation. It's the only thing that will redeem mankind. But this new future of work brings a lot of inequalities. People, we can have all this lovely Alice's. We can have the Da Vinci computer. But if we don't have electricity, will it work? So if we have load shedding, we're still going to need the accountant to do it manually. So there's a lot of things. And when we look at our country, just our country, how there are people that are battling to have food every day. that don't have electricity, talk to the lecturers about our students. Talk about how we must battle to get them on campus so that they can access e-learning. So, and in many countries, I was listening to CNN before I came here. Haiti, 17 missionary people were abducted, and they want $1 million for every person. And then I read that it's an everyday occurrence because the people are the poorest of the poor. We've got camps in Europe of refugees. And if we show them this slideshow that Nico presented today, they would just say, you know what? You don't understand my world. So when we look at our university, in our strategy intent, we talk about social justice. And there's 3 elements of social justice. The one is the people, the social aspect, then the planet and the environment. We're not doing very well on that one either. And then we've got the economic and the financial. So you're an element of the social justice, Nico. So I don't think the accountants will really ever be absolute. You talked about adapt or die. I want to add collaboration. Collapse or collaborate or collapse. You gave us the answer that no, the accountant will never become obsolete, but that education curriculum is the key. And then I get a bit nervous because do we have the capabilities of our staff? We'll have to retrain them to accept this challenge. And then I'm very concerned about the ethical judgment, because that's what makes us human, to be able to look at the bigger picture, the human and all the factors. And this profession is going to truly add value to our clients, our employees in the future, because although the mundane work can be done by machines, and no machine can ever interpret humanity. And that's the one thing that's important in the future of work, and that is humanity. So, Nico, I think it was a wonderful, wonderful lecture. I have attended quite a few of those, and I didn't miss one single word, although I studied it before this lecture because I had it. And I just wanted to say that we are so proud of you, but also because of your absolute commitment and dedication. We know, and Prof. has told me many times, and Jackie, that late at night, they'll get WhatsApps where Nico is stressing about something, about students, about the curriculum, about psycho. And when I introduced him Tuesday, we had dinner to Prof. Mala, and I introduced him as our Mr. Psycho, if you remember correctly, because he's really the pillar for our chartered accountancy. Colleagues, so from my side, congratulations, Nico. This is the one that you can hang up in your office, the true certification of your full professorship. And then this is a very special gift that was handmade by a previous colleague. Please be very careful with it. Treasure it. Don't let it to the kids or your wife. Be jealously about this wonderful pen, and we hope we're going to get lots of articles out of this. Thank you. Colleagues, now what we're going to do now is we're going to ask Nico and his family to go in front, and you will be able to just go and congratulate them. But before that, we're going to rise for the national anthem. So if you could rise for that, please.